Hey, this is Dave Croft here with an episode of Drumming 101. And what Drumming 101 is about is providing you the fundamentals that you need for effective performance and effective practice on the percussion instrument. So I thought it would be a good idea for the very first Drumming 101 episode to be simply about how to hold your sticks. A lot of times, drum teachers will kind of just tell you, put the sticks, grab it, hold them, and go. And so we start playing, and it is what it is, and we kind of hope it works out. But in all actuality, there are many different ways to hold the sticks, and each different way provides a new technique opportunity and a new way for you to get the most out of your performance and out of your playing. And so we're going to talk about how to hold your sticks. We're going to talk about fulcrums, and we're going to talk about the 3 grip positions. So come on, let's grab some sticks, grab a practice pad, and let's get going. All right, so you've gotten your first pair of sticks or your first drum set, and you're ready to go, and you're ready to start playing. Like I mentioned earlier, it's important that how you hold your sticks. It's important how you hold your sticks because it affects the sound that you'll be getting out of the drum. All right, and the first thing you want to know about how to hold your stick is where you're going to pinch the stick, and the pinch point is called the fulcrum. The fulcrum it's a physics term that has to do with the balance point of the stick, whether it's pinched in the middle to where it's balanced, whether you pinch it near the back to where it's more kind of front heavy. This is that balance point, or more specifically, the rotation point around which the stick is going to rotate in your stick motion. So if I pinch the stick here, then the stick is going to rotate around this point. If I pinch the stick somewhere in the middle, the stick rotates around this point, and that's called the fulcrum. There are a few different fulcrum hand positions. Again, fulcrum means pinch point. All right, the first pinch point, and the one that you were probably taught if you met with a teacher, is going to be kind of pinching between the index and thumb. All right, and that creates this kind of fulcrum. You pinch, and the rest of your hand kind of goes behind the stick as such. Okay, this creates a lot of power. It creates a very specific pinch point and a very specific rotation point, and that's all well and good. This puts the majority of your hand control behind the fulcrum. All right, so you can grip the stick with the remaining fingers. Okay, this is good for a lot of power. A lot of drumline guys, when they play, they'll put the pinch point between the index and the thumb. Okay. Another good thing is it opens up the back of your hand for finger control. All right. So that is the kind of the first fulcrum position. The second fulcrum position you'll see with a lot of orchestral players pinches between the thumb and the middle finger. Okay. What this does is it centralizes the stick to where it's more in the middle of the hand. It's not up front where there's one rotation point. It's more in the middle of the hand, which allows for a little bit more control, especially at lower volumes. And so when you're playing like an orchestral type of a passage, then you want that specific type of control. You want your fulcrum to be more centered in your hands. And so that's kind of your middle finger fulcrum. All right. One of the advantages I already mentioned is the control, but one of the disadvantages is it can be tough to get a really powerful sound because it's kind of centered in your hand, and your hand is kind of on top of it. Whereas with the index finger fulcrum, the entire weight of your hand is kind of behind your fulcrum, and so you can get a much more powerful stroke. And so that is, we have index finger, and we have the middle finger. which is for a little bit more delicate. Like I said, you see a lot of orchestral players play with this middle finger fulcrum, and sticks and the fingers are very very loose, very fluid. Their index finger kind of goes across the top, and this creates a little bit of leverage on the other side of the fulcrum. In front of the fulcrum, you kind of have some downward. And I know it looks kind of weird. It looks, like my fingers are kind of jutted straight out, but I'm able to kind of use my index finger to push down on the stick, which gives me a pretty good buzz roll even on a practice pad. All right. A fulcrum that I like to use, I call it the 3-point fulcrum. And if I were to demonstrate, if I hold my stick and kind of move it back and forth like this, that gives me kind of a certain level of control. Why don't you try that? Grab a stick and pinch between your index and your thumb. All right, now pinch between your middle finger and your thumb. Now watch what happens when I put 2 fingers over the fulcrum. All right, so now what I've created is a 1, 1, 2, 3. Like I said, I call this the 3-point fulcrum. And so look at that control. Now I'm able to use both index and middle finger kind of alternately. And so if I move my stick back and forth, I have a great level of control over my sticks. So again, it's not all middle finger, and it's not all index finger. It's kind of in between, and it's as if I were to put kind of a straight line through the back of my thumb, it would come out through my index, in between my index and middle finger. Okay. Index finger fulcrum, middle finger fulcrum, and now 3-point fulcrum. All right, which feels a little bit like the middle finger fulcrum with pulling my index fingers a little bit closer and pushing in between. So it's more like this kind of thing. It's not this, it's not this, it's this. Like I'm pushing in between the 2 fingers. All right, and why I really love this grip is it enables me to have the advantage of my index fulcrum, where I have a lot of power, and the advantage of the middle finger fulcrum, where I have that kind of control, but I can go back and forth nice and easily. And so if I need to go into finger technique, then I can do it. If I need to go to wrists, I can do it, and it's all about just kind of moving back and forth. Now, these aren't mutually exclusive. This isn't like this is the right way to hold the stick, this is the wrong way to hold the stick. This is a different way to hold the stick. This is another way to hold the stick. So don't let any drum teacher tell you that there is one right way to do this and that this is the one way to hold the stick. Now, as a beginner, you're probably taught that because it takes a little while to grasp the nuances of all these different stick positions. However, as your playing grows and you start, moving your sticks around in your hand, and you're like, well, this feels good for certain applications. I don't want you to think, hey, I'm playing wrong. I'm playing differently. So, just to recap, the 3 fulcrum positions. We have index finger, we have middle finger, and then we have the 3-point. One other thing I want to add about fulcrums before we get into grip positions is that where you hold the fulcrum and where you put your fulcrum on the stick has a great deal to do with how the stick feels in your hand. Now check it out. If I hold the stick in the middle, and if I pinch, let's just use an index finger fulcrum, and if I pinch right here, notice the stick feels very light. That's because the rotation point is equally balanced between the front end and the back end of the stick. All right. As I move the fulcrum back, the stick feels a little bit more top heavy and front end loaded because there's physically more weight in front of the fulcrum than behind the fulcrum. Okay. Now you'll see a lot of drummers move their fulcrum back to here. And they get this kind of thing. All right. Again, it's not wrong. It's just a different technique. But what a lot of drummers do is because they like the weight of the stick. They like the way it feels with the stick being heavier. And what it means is they don't have to work quite as hard to get louder, more accented notes. But there's another way that you can accomplish making the stick feel heavier than by actually moving your fulcrum back into the very back of your hands. Be careful, this can also lead to finger fatigue over a long period of time. I've also seen some players who, let's just say they might be a little bit lazy, and so they keep their arms kind of close to their body, and as they play their hi-hat, they'll kind of move this fulcrum way back into the hand like this, as opposed to like this and then moving the hand. By the way, if you're curious about my drum pad setup, this is nothing more. This is a Pro Logix pad with a little Vic Firth pad and an L arm that's just kind of clamped on. So this is kind of my homebrewed practice kit. It's just a kick and our hi-hat and snare, and then I just play my kick and hi-hat as I want it. So that's what's going on here. All right, so check it out. We talked about 1, 2, and the 3 fulcrum positions. Now watch what happens. If I want to create the feel of putting my fulcrum here, instead of sliding the stick back, what I can actually do is start pinching here with my pinky. All right, and I create this 4th fulcrum position. It's tertiary. Tertiary would be. Yeah, it would be tertiary. Anyway, regardless, I've now created a 4th fulcrum position by squeezing back here. Now, what I lose is any kind of rebound and delicacy control, but what I gain is I've instantly made my stick longer without moving my hand. Right? So my fulcrum position is here, and therefore my stick is rotating around this point, as opposed to moving my hand back and the stick rotating around the same point. All I do is I squeeze with my pinky. All right, I loosen up the front end of this, and this puts the entire weight of my hand in front of the fulcrum. Whereas here we had the entire weight behind the fulcrum. Here I've had the entire weight of my hand and all the energy coming from my arm in front of the fulcrum, and I'm able to get very loud strokes without really trying extra hard. Check it out. I'm gonna play index finger, middle finger, 3-point, back. Index finger, middle, 3-point, back. All right, a couple things you'll notice is that the stick height gets instantly larger. Even though I'm not consciously trying to make it larger, it just kind of happens because I'm throwing the stick down. Dom Famularo talks about this in his free stroke technique about pinching back here, and we'll talk about how to hit the drum in a different Drumming 101 episode. All right, so I can create 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Let me do that again. 1st, I'm just calling this 1st position. 2nd position. 3rd, you can remember for 3-point, because 1, 2, thumb is 3, and then 4th. Now, obviously, when I play, I don't leave my hands kind of wide open, and I don't play like that. But I do allow the stick to bounce freely and move freely in my hand. All right. Again, this puts all the weight of my hand in front of the fulcrum, and I get lots of power. Very tough to do diddle work. All right. There's 3-point. There's that 4th. Okay. One last time. 1st, second position, third position fulcrum, fourth position fulcrum. First position fulcrum, second position fulcrum, third position fulcrum, 3 points, and fourth, gripping the back, making the stick longer without moving your hand. All right, now let's talk about grips. Let's talk about the 3 grip positions. And as with all the fulcrum positions, they also have their advantages and disadvantages. Okay, we're going to be using a 3-point fulcrum for this demonstration. So it's not first, it's not second, it's 3. Okay, the first hand position is palms flat. Okay, I'm creating kind of a 90-degree angle here with my sticks. And just like Jojo Mayer talks about in his video, you kind of let your arms kind of loose, bring your arms up, and it creates a 90-degree angle, palms flat, and playing the drum. Okay, this is how most of us were taught when we first started out. Palms flat. This is known as the German grip position or German grip. Okay, I kind of call it the German grip position because it has to do with how you're positioning your hands, not necessarily how you're holding the stick. It has more to do with the positioning of your hands. All right, so German grip. Advantage is just like with the other fulcrum positions, what it does is it puts the entire weight on top of the stick, entire weight of your hand and your muscle movement. Palms flat, and it's very much like a waving type of a motion. Okay, it's very much an up and down. Lots of power. Even if I add that or combine that rather with my first position fulcrum, now I have a very strong stroke. If I combine it with my fourth position fulcrum, it's an extremely strong stroke. As a matter of fact, most fourth position fulcrums are played in the French or the German grip position with palms flat. That is the German grip. Okay, the next grip position is known as the French grip position. Okay, if German grip position is palms flat, the French grip position is palms up and down, or up and down, perpendicular to the floor, but parallel with each other. This is a thumbs up position. This is also used by timpanists. Okay, it creates a very loose, and note that this is very little wrist motion. Very little wrist motion, all in the fingers. I'm going to go to the side so you can kind of see what's happening there on the side. Okay, Marco Minimum in his DVD talks about isolating each one of the fingers to work on this grip position. All right, a lot of drummers use this grip position, and what most drummers use is a combination of grip positions depending on what they're playing. If I'm playing snare drum, a lot of times I'm playing German grip position, big heavy backbeats, fourth position fulcrum. But when I go to my ride cymbal, I then go to a French grip position, thumb up, because I want that kind of ride cymbal bounce that the French grip affords and allows me. Okay. All right, so we have German, and then we have French grip position. All right, the last grip position I want to talk about. The last grip position I want to talk about is somewhere right in between the French grip and the German grip. Well, let me go back to the French grip real quick. I'll talk about the advantages. The advantages is small muscles in your fingers allow for fast motion and fast movement. A lot of burst. Carter Beauford uses this position almost exclusively. The disadvantages is you have a much more limited range of motion with your wrists going up and down as you do as you would if your palms were flat. See that range of motion versus it's much more limited. It's also more tense. So I can play lighter and faster, heavier, and not necessarily slower, but definitely heavier. So that is French grip. You'll see a lot of tympanists actually kind of go side to side, and it's less of a 90-degree angle when you play French, because you're keeping your wrists together. I play French grip position anytime my hands extend, kind of going out, or even coming across my body if I'm playing my hi-hat. And then I'll play French grip position here. Cool? All right, now let's talk about what happens if you come in between French and in between German, okay? And what came between the French and the German in 1940s? It was the Americans. Yeah, that's right. World War II joke. Too soon. The American position comes somewhere in between the German, which is flat, the French position, grip position, which is straight up and down, thumbs to the ceiling, thumbs on top of the stick. And so the American grip position comes somewhere right in between. And I want you to imagine as if you were grabbing a doorknob. If you were grabbing a doorknob, you wouldn't, grab it straight up and down, and you probably wouldn't come at it from, the side. What you're going to do is come at it like this, like you're grabbing around. And if you just kind of let your hand flop normal and bring your hand up, notice that what's on top isn't your thumb, nor is it your middle finger or your middle knuckle. Likely what is on top is going to be kind of your index finger, and your hand kind of rotates around this index finger. Okay, and that is where the American grip position comes into play, where your hand isn't on top of the stick, it's not beside the stick, it's somewhere kind of in between, which allows you to go back and forth between the two hand positions relatively easily. French, German, American. All right, this also allows easy finger technique access without going up into French position. There's German, American, French, American, German. And you can see it's all about kind of the relationship of your wrists to the drum. Okay, that's not to say that you can't go in German position and play fingers. That's not to say you can't play, in the American position, fingers. Likewise, it's not to say that you can't play wrist in French position, like you can with the German. It's just that these grip positions kind of allow themselves and afford these techniques a little bit more easily. All right, so German, French, and then American. Okay, and let's talk about how the bottom of your hand should look. And let me see if I can arrange this. All right, so with the German position, you want your palms kind of flat, and it's a lot of fingers on the stick. With the French position, it's a little bit more open, so you kind of do that. With the American position, it's somewhere kind of in between. And this also is affected by your fulcrum as well, because as your fulcrum changes, so will kind of the way that your fingers wrap around the stick. Whereas with your index finger or first position fulcrum, you'll see most of the stick kind of goes into here, and your pinky is less of a part on the stick. If you were playing guitar, you'd have to kind of reach around, but in your first position fulcrum, you don't really have that, because you're pinching there, and these fingers do the majority of the work. And pinky's not really an issue. All right, with with second position fulcrum, you'll see that the fingers kind of are all universally on the stick. You're pinching further up into here. Okay. Whereas with the third position, 3-point fulcrum, all the fingers are in play. You're not pinching back here, but you're pinching more up here. All right, so to recap, first position fulcrum, second position, third position, fourth position. German grip position, French grip position, and American grip position. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Some of it you might have already known, some of it you might not have known, and we hope that that this is challenging you to explore different ways to hold your sticks. Next up on Drumming 101, we'll talk about how to hit the drum, because how you hit the drum affects the sound just as much as how you hold your sticks. So until next time, peace.